Welcome, I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics. Today we'll talk with two local leaders of the March for Our Lives movement that took off after the Parkland shootings in Florida. We'll ask them if the movement is sustainable and what they hope to accomplish here in the Valley, where pretty much all of our elected officials are already with them. These young people are smart and passionate, and I think you'll find them inspiring. Later, we'll hear what folks on the street are saying about this movement, and then Tuyen Fiack and Shay Franco-Clausen will tell us about the work of Silicon Valley Faces. Finally, on Where Are They Now, we'll meet Ron James, who was mayor of San Jose from 1967 to 1971, a time of considerable change in the city. All this next on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Masa Nazzal and Hiwad Haider. You're both seniors at Prospect High School, right?
Yes.
Correct. Tell us about your school.
Our school is a very diverse community. It's located in Saratoga. It has a lot of clubs and sports, and it's a very inclusive society.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Prospect, being Saratoga, West Side San Jose, pretty great area to grow up in, to go to school in. The school has, given us a lot of leadership opportunities, kind of embraced us as we've, found our way through the process. And with that, the social advocacy they've been relatively supportive of. And it's a great place to grow up, I think, for someone who cares about politics and youth in politics right now. Good.
So do you feel safe at your school?
Relatively, our school is a closed campus. There's always a police officer on campus also, but I think the main issue with involving this current climate is more of what will happen next, whether it's gun violence or anything. I think everyone is always a little bit on edge about that, but our school is safe.
And you feel safe? You think other kids feel safe there?
I think there's a rising need to not feel safe, even if you do, that you have to, especially now of late, entertain the thought of the unthinkable. And like Masa was saying, we have measures like, armed security, or in some days like a sheriff's deputy on campus, and, staff who's, not armed, but we feel secure with the people that are on our campus. It's just that the media and the way things have been going are threatening that peace of mind.
It's pretty scary. Do you think the school's doing enough to keep you safe?
Well, in my memory, and so just going back to the day post Parkland and just the outbursts of reactions and communication, was an email from our principal saying, we acknowledge that this happened. It is very scary, and we're going to bump up security on campus. And we hope that you feel safe.
Do you do drills there?
Not fire. We do red drills, but not specifically for a shooter. It's just if there's an intruder on campus, we do drills to protect ourselves from that.
So both of you have been involved in the March for Our Lives movement as advocates and organizers. What got you engaged, Haider? Hiwad?
Yeah. I would say the March for Our Lives movement, it was really like the first time of late that activism kind of was presented to students and teens in like a cookie cutter way, and kind of like a take this and build it yourself, DIY kind of activism. And so it was as simple as my buddy David Lay, he was our lead organizer, started a Facebook event, and he said, hey, I know you guys care about these issues. I'm interested in this Never Again Enough with school shootings movement. Do you want to get involved? And from there, it was like just over a 1-month mission to create this rally that was happening everywhere, and it really gave me perspective about the way people approach issues as controversial as gun violence.
So social media gave you a structure to do the organizing.
Definitely, and ease of access of information, advertising and marketing one's events, getting out to community meetings. It's also easy, but at the same time, it's also overwhelming for us. I would say probably our generation takes in more words and pictures and statistics and stuff than anyone ever has.
Yeah. What about you, Masa?
Why I got involved?
Yeah.
Well, I think it was right after the Parkland shooting happened, and I saw the videos online. It struck a chord within me, a chord of fear, and that something needed to happen, especially because there's no pattern to the behavior of where the shootings are happening. It could happen anywhere, and I think that's why most people are afraid. And I'm happy that the students of Parkland rallied together to organize something, and I wanted to be a part of it as someone who cared about the issue, because I do feel like our schools need to be safer, and there needs to be more restrictions on the guns and who's allowed to own them.
Yeah, those Parkland students were definitely inspiring and engaging for a lot of people. And social media, as well as television and traditional media, gave them an outlet and access to lots more people. But the movement really caught on. Were you a little surprised at the response in your school?
I think that it was quick to take off. You know, in our area, we were the San Jose March for Our Lives. And so really with like our leadership group, which kind of like formed quickly, we wanted to, reach out to as many students as possible and say like, hey, are you also as scared as we are? Do you also think that it's about time that students our age, raise their voice and, stop, turning the blind eye to gun violence? And I think we'll probably get to this more, but we don't feel immune here. The political climate and the fact that we tend to vote blue in our area overwhelmingly, and people who vote blue tend to support gun control, that doesn't exempt us from having to do this. And so we were actually very grateful with all of the on-campus support we had and getting it so quickly.
Was there also some backlash on campus? Were there students or faculty who thought you should just calm down and shut up, or that actually we don't need gun control? Or
Well, there were some students, there was some backlash from students who believed that it was more just a trending issue, that it wasn't going to be a long-term issue. But that was such a small population, and the amount of people who gathered together was most of the school. And I think that overwhelmingly beats the people who had a negative perspective to it.
so what do you hope to accomplish? What's the goal?
Also, first of all, to align with the National March for Our Lives movement, the things they're specifically advocating for, in addition to just awareness and like getting out the vote, voter registration. Some specific policies are universal background checks. You look at the statistics and support for that, it's widely accepted that almost 100% of Americans feel the need for that.
Yeah.
They talk about funding for the CDC, Center for Disease Control, to research gun violence, which congressionally was like barred from them, I want to say around 2008. Creating and updating a database from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms for that to be publicly accessible, like gun owners and their history of their ownership and whether they've gone through specific checks, in addition to some more controversial things like high-capacity magazines ban and assault weapons bans. But for us, we've kind of had to tailor that message to the local climate and take on the fact that our elected officials already support those kind of things, and how can we best equip ourselves to stay in line with this despite being in blue California.
Yeah, we already have a lot of those policies in California. And I think our entire congressional and state legislative delegation supports probably everything you just listed. So you really have to be supporting things happening elsewhere, right?
Well, not necessarily. There are still things that we can work on in California, because like Hiwad was mentioning, California is not immune. We had the Isla Vista shooting in 2014, the San Bernardino shooting, and the YouTube shooting that happened just a few months ago. We are not immune to gun violence,
No.
but we have had a lot of gun safety measures in place, and I think the next step for California is background checks. And I was talking to my history teacher the other day, and how we should treat guns as if we're treating our cars. There should be a permit, license, insurance, and so it's a longer process, but you guarantee that those guns are going into people who can use them safely. And I think that's the next step for California, to bigger background checks, more psychological evaluations of the patients.
So there is work to do in California.
Yes.
But I think you also work with Supervisor Ken Yeager on a local policy change.
That's right. We were very grateful to have two kind of ordinance interactions with the county board here in Santa Clara, and that was through Supervisor Cortese's summit on gun violence and mental health, which did receive some backlash regarding the potential stigma around mental health. And so we did our best to have a presence at that summit, although our participation was limited to seeing that it happens, and it did. And so dialogue is always productive. And what you were mentioning with Supervisor Yeager was the county fairground gun show ban. And so that's like the sale and possession of firearms on county property. So locally we have these actions. I would say they're pretty minuscule in the bigger picture. But of course it's progress, and it's something that we're happy to contribute to, and we're grateful to our local leaders for pioneering that.
It takes small steps sometimes at the local level and at the state level, because it's not happening at the federal level, as you know all too well. The latest shooting, sadly, was in Texas, and the reaction of students at that school was a lot different from the reaction at Parkland or the reaction you all are having, because there were students at that school who really said the solution is to arm teachers. What do you think about that?
I think adding guns into the formula isn't gonna make it safer. In my opinion, it allows for more danger to happen, to have those type of weapons on campus with students, because either a teacher will get too angry and maybe use it, or students could get access to the teacher's firearm. And so it still allows for a dangerous situation. I think the first step we need to take is to ban assault rifles, and for stronger background checks for
you agree,
the guns.
Hiwad?
I definitely agree in that arming teachers is ill-conceived, because the people who support this don't realize that educators don't take on that profession with the intention of being bodyguards necessarily. So you arm them, and especially if they're not willing to be armed in the first place, then they're taking on a job description and are being paid or not being paid enough to begin with for teaching, and are now being asked to protect lives, and if anything is encouraging gun violence to take place by putting a handgun in the drawer of a teacher who is probably not going to be trained well enough to use it, even if there's a program to do so.
I agree. I was a teacher, and I would not want to have had that responsibility. So you mentioned earlier voter registration, that that's a really important part of what's going on now with young people, with March for Our Lives. I'm sure you also know that young people traditionally, historically, don't vote in nearly the numbers that older people do. The last midterm election nationally had a 20% turnout amongst millennials, so people older than you are. First of all, why do you think that is? Why do you think young people have not voted in significant numbers? And secondly, are you going to be able to change that? Start with you, Hiwad.
Well, so we're both right now senior year in AP Government, U.S. Government and Politics.
Yeah.
We interact with turnouts and like political socialization and these things a lot. With our textbook and curriculum. And so what the primary thing we've learned so far is that the young people are not given an incentive to vote that much. There are not very many means available for them to realize how issues of policy will directly affect their lives. They're pursuing education, or they're entering the workforce, and yet things like student loan debt and gun violence on campuses and any number of issues, housing, as soon as they graduate and pursue a degree.
Healthcare.
Correct, healthcare. There's no middle ground between the policymakers and the youth as to what's going to bring these two parties together, and so they don't vote, and they don't see why they should vote.
Maybe we need some younger policymakers.
Certainly.
But it's a vicious cycle, because if you're the campaign consultant and the candidate, you have a limited amount of money. Who are you going to communicate with? People who will vote, or people who probably won't vote. So candidates talk much more about Social Security, things that older people are interested in, rather than things that are so crucial to the lives of young people. So do you think do you think this is going to change, Masa?
Yes, just because young people are in the news now, we're getting more attention, our grievances are being aired. We know what we want to change, and the policymakers are seeing the impact of that, of all these students uniting. And I do think that more people will vote, especially because this is a violent time, a dangerous time to be a student. Hiwad just told me a statistic yesterday that students is more likely to die as a student in a high school than being in service, and that's crazy to me. And it reminded me of the time of the Vietnam War, because there was a huge influx of voting then between the young people because they wanted to change.
That was my time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to change, because there was violence against young people then. So it's the same thing. Young people are seeing the violence happening to them, and they want to go out and vote.
Well, I really hope they're going to engage. It's really great that you two are engaged. Final question. You're seniors, you're graduating. Masa, what's next for you?
I'm actually moving to Scotland to attend.
Really?
Yes, to attend the University of Edinburgh.
Ooh, how cool.
For international relations.
Oh boy.
Yes.
She'll come back with a really cool accent.
I hope so.
I'm pretty sure. It's a great place. Edinburgh is a beautiful city.
Thank you.
You been there?
No.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm just moving there on a whim.
That's wonderful. What about you?
In stark contrast to Masa, I'll just be right down the 87 at Santa Clara University.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be studying chemistry there with a minor in Chinese. And I'm very grateful to a lot of this recent advocacy I've been a part of for building a lot of connections locally. Community groups and events and individuals with high efficacy that I want to stay in touch with and involved with. And I'll be happy to be local because there's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do, and you're going to stay active?
Yes, I'm going into. I want to go into international human rights, so I
Good.
will always.
You will be
active. Yeah.
You will be active. Well, Hiwad Haider, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Masa Nazzal, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Get those young people out voting, and let's make some policy change.
Thank you.
Certainly. Thanks
Thank you
again.
for having us.
Now let's hear what some folks on the street are saying about this movement. Then, on Community News, we'll hear from Tuyen Fiack and Shay Franco-Clausen of Silicon Valley Faces. So what do you think about the youth movement for gun control after the Parkland shootings?
Well, I'm very much in support of it. I think we've needed gun control in this country for a very, very long time. And anything that we can do to help get guns off of the streets is a good idea. Our kids need to be safe. They need to be able to walk to school and feel comfortable.
I think they're doing a great job. I think it's really necessary. I think that people who are mentally ill shouldn't have guns and they shouldn't have access, and I think kids are doing a great job.
I think it's been surprising, actually. And then also to see like the difference with the youth, throughout the country, like how like the youth in Florida was handling it, and how the youth in Texas recently was handling it, and just it's been great to see that drive in, and I hope that it really keeps them involved to continue once they turn 18, to be voting and to voice their minds and be active in the process.
I think it's very encouraging. The Second Amendment is a bedrock of our Constitution, or at least a big part of it. But in the modern day and age, we really need to recognize that we need to start asking ourselves some more fundamental questions about some of the larger concerns around, guns, and especially with all the issues we're seeing. I mean, there was just another school shooting today, and I'm exhausted, and I'm glad that at least, if the politicians won't do it, at least people even younger than me are starting to come up and, develop their voice, and that's very encouraging.
So I'm actually really inspired and hopeful that this youth movement will actually make change. We've been needing change in this country around gun control for years, and the fact that I've got 4-year-olds and already I'm worried about them going to school, it's nice to see this next generation really stepping up and stepping into the spotlight in regards to this issue.
It has to start somewhere, and that's a good place to begin with the youth. They'll make the change. We can't.
Hi, my name is Tuyen Fiack, and I'm the Executive Director of Silicon Valley Faces. And I'm here with Shay Franco-Clausen, Director of Development and Government Relations. The mission of our organization is to create communities based on empathy and social equity. SV Faces has served over 15,000 youth in Santa Clara, San Mateo, and Alameda counties by teaching students empathy, respect, positive self-image, inclusiveness, honesty, integrity, and resiliency through our social, emotional, experiential learning programs. Camp Everytown, Leadership Institute, Common Ground, and Restorative Practice programs provide students in the Bay Area the necessary tools and supportive ecosystem to become positive leaders of the future.
For more than 50 years, our staff, board, financial partners, local schools, and volunteers have worked to create a systematic change by equipping youth, the future caretakers and leaders of our communities, to resist bias, bigotry, bullying, and violence. Social responsibility is an integral part of Silicon Valley companies and foundations, And we thank organizations for investing in our youth and our community, and hope that many more will make serving our youth a top priority.
If you would like to learn more about how you can make a difference in shaping Silicon Valley to be an inclusive and equitable community for our future leaders, please contact me at tfiac@svfaces.org. You can also visit our website at www.svfaces.org and follow us on Facebook. Thank you.
Next on Where Are They Now, we'll talk with Ron James, the first directly elected mayor of San Jose in modern times. Before he was elected in 1967, mayors were chosen by the city council, not the voters. Ron served just one term, 1967 to 71, but it was a time of considerable change for the city, and he was at the heart of it all. Welcome, Ron James. Thanks for being with us today. So you're a native son, fourth generation Californian, I think?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, my great-grandfather came from Cornwall, England in the 1860s. He was a hard rock miner, went to work in the Almaden Quicksilver mines here in South San Jose, and my grandfather was born out at the mines, and they came into San Jose in the 1880s and started a little drayage business with horses and wagons. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of how our family business evolved into the trucking and warehousing business. Yeah.
So you grew up here, went to San Jose High.
Went to San Jose High.
And on to Stanford.
Yeah.
And then into the family business, the James Moving Company.
Right.
Right? Then in 1965, you ran for city council, right? What made you leap into politics?
Well, I had been chairman of the City Planning Commission for a couple of years going into that 65 election. So it kind of bothered me that with all of the growth coming in San Jose and Santa Clara and the county doing a lot of land use and zoning, there wasn't any sort of a regional focus. Every city was doing its own thing, and I thought maybe if I got elected to the city council, I could start some interest in approaching planning and land use on a regional basis.
So you ran for council, got elected, no problem?
No problem.
No problem, congratulations. And then 2 years later you ran for mayor, and you were the first directly elected mayor of San Jose in over 50 years. Right. Mayors were chosen by the council before that. In fact, you were, I think, a council-chosen mayor in 1966, and then you ran in 67. What made the city change over to directly elected mayor?
Well, I think the growing population and the voters figured that they'd rather select the political leader of the city than have the council members pass it around every couple of years.
Yeah.
What happened was when I was elected in 65 to the council, they immediately appointed me vice mayor. And then the next year they appointed me mayor. So I was mayor going into that election. You're right, yeah.
Yeah, so that helped.
It helped a lot.
And I believe you won 79% of the vote in that election.
79 or 80%,
yeah. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. What were campaigns like then?
Campaigns are pretty much the way they always are. You're sort of outlining your vision for the city. You're going around to different organizations looking for endorsements, whether it be homeowner groups or the Chamber of Commerce, Convention Visitor Bureau, the Mercury News. San Jose had a television station in those days, Channel 11, that was active and endorsing. And matter of fact, they set up a live interview and debate, actually, between my opponent and I.
Robert Welch?
Robert Welch, yeah. That was a fun debate. Yeah, it was my first experience in debating publicly and on live television.
You didn't do TV ads?
No.
You didn't do radio ads?
I think some of the radio stations did some ads as part of an endorsement, yeah.
Yeah. Did you do mailing?
Oh yeah, sure. There was a lot of mailing, a lot of meeting with homeowner organizations.
A lot of in-person campaigning, though.
Exactly.
Of course, it was a smaller city then.
It was about half the size it is now.
Yeah. So you're elected mayor in 67, you served to 71. The council changed considerably during your time as mayor. What kinds of changes did you see on the council itself?
Well, I think it was the influence of the incoming population and the voters. There was an interest in a lot of the homeowner positions. We were growing as a city probably at the rate of 20 or 25,000 every year.
Yeah, wow.
And so that kept you on your toes in terms of trying to keep up with residential development, storm sewers, sanitary sewers, fire departments, all of the things that go with a growing city. And so a lot of these homeowner groups wanted to have a say in who was on the council. So that's probably why the council changed in complexion.
Yeah, a little bit of grumbling about the level of service people expected versus the level the city was able to provide
That's right,
at
yeah.
that time, or a lot of grumbling.
Well, the thing was, with all of the growth, we always had the city's voter support because everything had to be bundled up into bond proposals that you put before the voter, and whether it was streets or highways or whatever, we had to have 66 2/3 vote, and we always got it overwhelmingly. So everybody was in favor of growth, even though it was hard to keep up.
Yeah. So council changed. Virginia Schaefer, for one, represented the homeowners, a relatively conservative voice on a lot of issues.
Right.
Dave Golio, I think, was from the homeowners faction. Walt Hayes got elected in 69, and Walt Hayes was an environmentalist. This is just at the time we were all kind of becoming conscious of environmentalism.
Sure.
So that's a big change from the way the council was when you first got on in 65. It was a more business-oriented, a little bit more conservative council, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. But through this time, you worked with a city manager named Dutch Hammond,
Right.
famous city manager, 19 years as San Jose city manager from 1950 to 1969, and was, well, a famously strong city manager. So I guess one question for you is, who was really running, who was leading? Was it you as directly elected mayor, or was it?
Well, that changed
still
when
Dutch
I got
Hammond?
elected. That
I
changed
see.
when I got elected. That was a whole object of the directly elected mayor. But Dutch was a very good city leader, but he was also a political leader because of a unique feature in our city charter where every 2 years he was on the ballot for a vote of confidence.
Yeah, this is unheard of in city manager systems elsewhere.
But because of that, and because of the overwhelming support he got every year, he was really the political leader. The council members were, they were part-time, they couldn't spend the time at City Hall, and Dutch was there running the ship, and he did a good job for 19 years, as you say. Most city managers, by the way, their average tenure is like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So he was pretty successful.
Yes,
and he was a good competitor. That's what I liked about him.
That's extraordinary. He was a politician, really, as
He
well
had,
as
he had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But that changed. See, that changed with that 1967 election.
Yeah.
And so you've seen the mayor's position evolve through the last 50 years to where it is today.
We'll hear more from Ron James next month, and we'll be back with more election coverage. Meanwhile, you can catch up on previous shows on our website at creatvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for CreaTV San Jose. And you can let us know what you think about our show and suggest future topics or guests by email at valleypolitics@creatvsj.org, on Twitter at valley_politics, and by following us on Facebook. And now, that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics. See you next time.